Namaste, everybody. Boom. Healthy boundaries, one of my favorite topics. Got my notes right here. So, if you're just looking at an opportunity to personally or professionally establish healthy boundaries, this is going to be a great introduction, a great talk to kind of get you started. All right. If you do not have a journal and a pen, I want you to go grab a journal and a pen. And when I ask a question, I'll just remind you, just pause the video, write down the question and your response. So, what I want you to do first is think about how you share your story, right? If you were to give me your story right here today, what would that look like for you? How would you portray yourself? Pause and think about that just for a minute. And if you want to journal it, you can journal and write down your story. But what I want you to begin to think about is when you share your story, how do you portray yourself as a victim or a hero? And a lot of times we're in that victimhood mentality and we get stuck in it. But who you are today, you need to be that hero. You need to be that warrior, that person that becomes accountable for their beliefs, their actions, and their behaviors. Victims, they're blaming somebody else for the situation they're in. I'm in the situation because so-and-so, right? Not because of your actions and your beliefs. Now, a lot of times when we talk about the past, we were victimhood mentality. We were victims in the past, so we portray ourselves. And so it's challenging as we transition, that when we portray ourselves from the past, that we transition and say, yep, that's who I was that victim, I had the victimhood mentality. Now, I'm not talking about victims of crimes. That's completely, totally different, right? Survival, for those people, that's the first step, and then thriving is the next, right? Establishing healthy boundaries as well. But I'm saying that you're blaming your situations on everybody else that's going on, all right? So, when you tell your story, are you a victim? Are you a hero? Are you that warrior, all right? I want you to realize that being vulnerable is being real. Earlier this year, I talked to this amazing friend of mine, and she was like, man, I don't know what's going on in my life. I don't know why I'm married. I think I want to get out of this relationship. It's horrible, blah, 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 blah. Called the husband. He's like, everything's wonderful. Everything's beautiful. Everything's great. It's all fabulous. It's like, these two people are on the same path. They're going down the same road, the same journey together. One of them is enjoying life to the fullest, full of love and compassion and kindness, and then the other one is wondering what she's doing. I called her back about a month later, and I said, how's everything going? She's like, great, wonderful, better than ever. I said, what changed? She goes, I changed. I became vulnerable. Vulnerable is what really helped me to understand who I was, what I needed, and to communicate that to my significant other and to myself. So being vulnerable is being real, it's being authentic, it's being genuine with who you are, your needs, your wants, your desires, okay? So begin to have those types of conversations, I would say. Anything that I call a red flag, anything that's a high level, personally, professionally, within yourself and others. There's something right now, some guilt, some shame, some things that are going on from your past that you're still dealing with. Give yourself grace, give yourself forgiveness, give yourself the peace, give yourself the tools of empowerment to truly begin to transform who you are. Fall in love with who you are today, right? Empower yourself today. Then you can begin to have that conversation with others, whatever that topic may be, right? But address it. Because without addressing it, it's only delaying the healing process. You're still hanging on to those things from the past because you haven't established healthy boundaries, because you're avoiding those thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and you haven't become in tune with that. So the sooner you get into tune with that, the sooner you dive into that, the sooner you're going to begin to heal and recover. Establish those healthy boundaries with yourself first. All right? And begin to think about the relationship you have with others is a direct reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. I can't love others if I don't love myself. I can't respect others if I don't respect myself. I can't offer gratitude and grace and peace to others if I don't give it to myself. We reap what we sow, right? I don't know, my little homestead out there, if I plant corn, I'm growing corn, right? If I plant celery, I grow celery. We reap what we sow. It's the same thing with our beliefs, our actions, and our intention, an intentful life. Get up today and plant those seeds of courage, of forgiveness, of trust, of love, and you'll reap them. Your harvest will be bountiful, and it's going to be amazing, and it's going to be nurturing. But you have to start today with your mindset, your thought process, and establish those healthy boundaries. A lot of times in the Midwest, what I'll hear is if you go through somebody or they're next to you, like at a grocery store or coming in and out of a gas station or whatever it is, they'll be like, oh, I'm sorry. I want you to reframe your perspective of what you're saying and begin to say thank you. Begin to offer gratitude towards somebody, not the opportunity for, I would call it still the victimhood of, oh, I'm sorry, or there's some regret, or there's some shame, or there's some guilt, but really like empowerment. Hey, thank you, I appreciate you, I hope you have a good day. Think of the positive aspects of that and not the negative connotation that you're kind of giving yourself. So I'm going to give you an example of when I was in Tremblant, I think it was. We were doing this workshop, and it was really cool. So the guy leading the workshop got this couple at the very front row, and he told the guy, he's like, all right, I'm going to stand here. When you walk up to me, I want you to walk to me, and when you get, I'm going to walk to you. As I walk to you and I get too close, put your hand up, right? So he's walking, and the guy gets really far away, puts his hand up. Well, then he tells the girl, hey, I'm going to walk to you. When I get close enough, it's a healthy boundary, put your hand up. So he's walking and walking. He gets really close, and then she puts her hand up to stop. And I'm thinking, oh my God, dude, I'm a hugger. I greet people and I hug them, give them a handshake, bring them in, hug them, right? Give them that carry hug, a little heart to heart. And I look around and it's a room full of women. I'm like, I'm not picking anybody. It's not gonna happen. I'm not gonna pick anybody. I'll let somebody pick me. If they don't pick me, then I just won't do this exercise. The front of the room, there's this like French Canadian guy, and he waves at me, so he comes to the back because I'm by like the exit door, right? So any of those people that know, like, you know, I want the exit as close as I can, and I sit right next to that exit door. And so we had a lot more room than the other people. And I said, hey, I'll let you choose. Do you want to come to me, or do you want me to go to you? And he goes, okay, I'll come to you. Come to you. In his French Canadian accent that I can't replicate. So he starts walking, and he starts walking up to me, getting close, and he stops, thinking I'm going to put my hand up. Gets closer, puts his hand up, thinking I'm going to put my hand up, gets closer, closer. And I just give him the old carry hug. I just bring him in and hug him, right? And then he starts doing all this stuff with his hair. He's like, I'm so confused. I don't understand. I never met a man to hug me. I don't know. I feel so welcome. I feel so loved. I feel so accepted. I feel all these good things. And he kept rubbing his head. He's like, I'm so confused. He's like, I never felt this before. I don't understand, right? I tore down the walls. I tore down the barriers. I opened my heart. I was vulnerable, raw, authentic, and real with some man I'd never even met before. And I said, all right, I'm going to start walking to you now. And I start walking, and he starts doing this thing with his hand. Like, as I get closer, like normal mode, right? We want to block. We want to keep people at a distance, keep them away. And then as I got closer, he hugged me, and then he just, like, you know, started crying a little bit, got really emotional, and he's just like, man, I'm so confused. I don't understand. Well, that's what happens a lot of times in our life, is that we have all this bitterness and all this anger and all this resentment from the things in the past. The relationship that we have with ourselves is a direct reflection of the relationship we have with others. So realize that when you love yourself at a whole completely different level, you can be vulnerable. You can be raw, authentic, and real and genuine with who you are. All right, we're going to get into the journaling questions. So after I ask the question, I want you to pause the video, write the question, write the answer. What creates stress? And I want you to get to the why. Now, sometimes you have to ask yourself 5 to 7 times, why? Because we're not really getting in touch with that. Next question. What makes you feel alive and free, and why? Pause the video, answer the question, write it down, answer it. Where do you find inspiration, and why? Go ahead, pause the video, write the question, answer it out. Okay. Now I want you to think about when you're inspired, the change is more impactful, right? We've all probably worked at organizations or government places where new management, new shifts, new things come in, right? There's a shift, there's a change in management or ownership, and things begin to rotate and they change, and it's not the same. It's not the same level as it was before. Well, if that was forced upon us, it's not very impactful. It's not very motivating. It's not very, I would say, impactful in a positive way. It's not very exciting. It's not very motivating, and you're not enjoying what you're doing as much as you used to. So think about that. When you begin to enjoy what you're doing and you feel excited and you begin to feel motivated and you're inspired, that change is going to be so much more dramatic and a positive aspect in your life. So begin to find the opportunity to inspire yourself, right? I want to know what your dreams, your visions, and your goals are. Now, I'll explain that a little bit. There's another video out there about kind of, getting your vision for your life, and that explains that dreams are like, hey, this is like what's going on kind of when I sleep, and this is kind of where I want to be, but that's also a vision. Now, the goal is when you have like a deadline. Hey, I want to take that vision. Like, so for me, I want to build this structure out on our homestead, right on the farm. So I've got other people that I'm dependent upon for this success, right? But we get the structure built, and then we get it installed, and then we finish out and frame it out, and we get water, and we get septic, and we get electrical, and we get all these other things, right? Things that are not in my wheelhouse. So a lot of times we have to ask for help, and it's okay to ask for help, right? But I kind of have a deadline of once this structure is built and out there on the property, I want everything done within a year, right? I'm okay if it takes 12 months. I'll do a little at a time, right? Within my time frame of what I am capable of doing. But I want to know from you, what are your dreams, your visions, your goals? What do you really want out of your life? Pause the video, write down the question, write down the answer. Now I want to know, what are your excuses for not accomplishing your dreams, visions, and goals? Are you playing the role of the victim? Victimhood mentality, that it's somebody else's fault, right? Now, a lot of times, in order for me to get to where I want, I have to ask for help. And that's normal, guys. We have to be in that frame of mind of being vulnerable to ask for assistance on so many levels and so many aspects. So once you get the help, then you can move on, right? So once I get the structure, then I can start doing walls, floors, ceiling, painting, and all the things that need to be done and accomplished, right? But I'm not able and capable within this time frame to build the whole structure. I'm not qualified or capable to run the electricity from the pole, from the transmitter down to the temporary pole and into the house. There's people that I ask for help that help me with this process. So be okay with that, but you can't commit to your dreams and excuses simultaneously. You have to pick one. You can't be that victim and hero simultaneously. You have to pick one. Who do you really want to be? Begin to establish those healthy boundaries. Begin to think about how you can portray yourself as that hero, as that warrior, okay? I want you to think about what's distracting you from being present, right? And a lot of times we can't be mindful, we can't be in the moment, we can't be where we should be centered and grounded because we haven't established healthy boundaries. We haven't engaged in self-care. Healthy boundaries in self-care, say financially, personally, professionally. We're overextended. We're running our kids around doing all these things that we don't have any time for ourselves. Now we're tired, we're lethargic, we're cranky, but we're like, oh, I'm doing this because I love my kid. But realistically, why are you really doing that? Right? I do encourage people when they're young and healthy and in shape and, to work 40, 60 hours a week. And there's two reasons why I tell people to do that. One is because you're going to earn as much money, you're going to have as much energy and stamina, usually when you're younger, set you up for success financially. Then you can have no debt, no house payment, very little, no credit card, no car payments, all of that stuff. The other thing is when you're working that much, you don't have a lot of time to spend your money, right? So work as hard as you can when you're in your 20s and 30s, and when you get to your 40s, settle down, relax a little bit, set yourself up more financially for success. But what happens is the distractions from keeping us from being present, those distractions are a lot of times our finances. Why are we really working? What are we getting from it? What is it who we are? Is it a label? Is that why we went to school and we got that label behind it because we need that label, and now we have all this debt and we realize, hey, we're not really happy, we're not really bringing us joy? Or maybe it's relationships. Maybe you really are at a job, you're miserable in a relationship that's really toxic, right? Just like my friends. Maybe you need to become vulnerable, really vulnerable. You need to have a space where you can be raw, authentic, real, and genuine. And once you get into that space and you dive into it, then things begin to change and you see things in a different light. All right? So remember, being present is being mindful. Now think about, do you have a good personal, professional life balance? You know, as we age, 40 hours a week is more challenging, right? So maybe we need to work 30 hours a week, or maybe we need to work part-time, right? Setting ourselves up for success when you're younger empowers us as we get older. Maybe we're doing too much in our personal life and it affects it. You really can't separate personal and professional. I know people say it, but I've never believed it. Because the fact is, what you do and what's going on in your personal life affects your professional life. What you're doing in your professional life affects your personal life. While I was in the Air Force, I had a top secret clearance, SCI level 3, and so all the secrets and everything that I learned at work, I couldn't go home and share with my wife, right? So I was in this closed off, blocked mode of, I couldn't really talk about a lot of things, right? And so a lot of times we're trained because of our job that we're not going to go home and share the drama, the toxic energy, the tragic events, the death or the near death, and how those people died. It wouldn't be healthy for us or them, right? So a lot of times because of our personal life, it truly affects our professional life. And because of what we do professionally, it affects our personal life. Realize those two are so intertwined, and I don't like when people say keep those separate. It's impossible. It truly is impossible. So think about, your gifts and talents are very unique, and you don't have to have a conventional life to be happy. So you can share your gifts and talents with our community. There's so many people that are artistic that end up doing all these things and creative in their life, and they're inspired, so their change is more impactful, right? But whatever your gifts and talents truly are in your life, use those for the community, and you are going to really be inspired. You're really going to be excited to go to work or do whatever you do each and every day. So think about walls. They keep you blocked, right? But doors are the path. Walls are the barriers to one's soul, but doors are the opportunity to allow the path of love. Walls keep you blocked. They are the barrier to the soul. Healthy boundaries are the door that open the path of love. Okay? So think about this as healthy boundaries. You're the gatekeeper. You can control who you allow in and out of your space and how long they're in your space. You empower yourself, and you take those keys and you can control. That's the healthy boundary aspect of it, personally and professionally. Got to pause for just 1 second. Make sure everything's good. Yeah. So, I had this neighbor, and as they began to move and transition, there was a lot of little things. I can't remember everything that they were doing, but I know, like, we had this shared driveway, and they blocked that driveway to the other houses. And so there was this little trailer that their construction guy had, and so he'd pull it in, he'd block the driveway. So instead of parking his trailer like in one of their parking spots or somebody else's spot and leaving the trailer there while he did the work and allowing people to come in and out, they blocked it. And then a few times, all the neighbors behind them would park in front of my house and block me in where I couldn't even get in and out of my house. And they didn't communicate, they didn't say anything, right? Just an entitlement. Entitlement that, hey, I've got to do this, this is a priority, it doesn't matter how it affects anybody else, right? And then their dogs would get out a few times, and a few times their dogs would come over and shit in my yard, and I'm like, that happens, whatever, right? But one time their dogs we're down at the creek in front of my house, and our dogs and their dog got in a fight, and I keep pulling my dogs off, and I'm falling in the creek. And you know, it was a time of the year, I think it was in the spring, the creek was really cold, and I had a lot of flare-ups, right? My inflammation was really bad, I probably didn't feel very good, and now I'm drenched from head to toe. And it was kind of like at first nonchalant, like, oh, I'm sorry, because the thing is, this has happened before, right? So if you tell me you're sorry, I'm expecting a change. When you tell me you're sorry, I'm going to ask you, what does that mean, right? Because a lot of times you just say that, right, as you're opening the door. Oh, I'm sorry, you know, or maybe excuse me, instead of giving gratitude, instead of owning up to it. Then their daughter came over and took my daughter's like vape pen. I don't know all the stuff about it, right? But there's like the vape pen and then like the stuff you charge it with. And I remember it because my daughter had a friend over and she's like, hey, I can't find my vape pen. And they're out looking in the snow and they're like, come help us. And I'm like, I'm not going out looking in the snow for the vape pen, right? Well, the neighbor's daughter had said, hey, our daughter gave the vape pen to her. But anybody I know, and probably anybody you know that has a vape pen and that refill charger stuff, would not give it away unless they had a replacement. Because most of the people you know use that multiple times on a day. So she texts us and she says, hey, please stop giving my daughter illicit and illegal items. And we've had that conversation with her before because, you know, not that I partake in marijuana, but people would be in my house and they smoke weed and her daughter would be over there, right? And she said the same thing about us not doing illegal and illicit items around her daughter. Well, the thing is, by Colorado law, those are not illegal or illicit items, right? And we're not offering this to your daughter. You're not in the house. But the thing is, we don't do anything illegal or illicit. It's not even passive aggressive, it's completely totally aggressive. It's also a projection, right? And it's putting a lot of blame on us. So I call her back and I go to have a conversation with her, and she starts belittling me and starts being argumentative. At first it was okay. She was in denial because I said, your daughter stole those items. And she's like, no. And there's a lot of other things going on with her daughter. Her daughter just had like some brain surgery and her daughter was on a lot of medication. So her daughter wasn't even cognitively really thinking to her best ability because of all the other stuff that was going on. So they overlooked that, hey, this is a possibility that our daughter's behavior is going to change because of all these medicines and prescriptions and because, you know, they just did some brain surgery on her. It wasn't a big deal to me. The big deal was how she approached it, because the whole entire time it was always about entitlement. I'm right, you're wrong. Doesn't matter what you say. And so same thing with her blocking, you know, her having the construction people block the driveway. And there's so many other scenarios with the dogs and everything else, right? It's never really being accountable for who she was. It's always blaming it to somebody else and taking light of it. And so I said, well, we've got a couple of options. You can return the items, or we can just never talk again, right? And at this point, I said, you owe me an apology. So you can return the items and apologize, or we can never talk again. And she didn't believe me, because she's probably never had anybody stand up to her and establish those healthy boundaries. So she hung up. I was like, well, that solves that. I guess I'll never talk to her again. And I'm okay with that, right? Well, then her husband says, hey, can we go grab a beer? And I'm like, sure. And he picks me up at the door. My wife's calling it a date. She's like, you got a date, you know, dress up really nice. Giving me a hard time. So we get in the car and he goes, you don't even drink, do you? I said, no, but you can buy me dessert. Because those of you that know me, when I go out, I want some good dessert. So we went and got me some bread pudding, and we're at the bar, and I told him, I said, hey, you know, the first thing is your wife lacks, and he goes, tact? I was like, you could say that, but it's really emotional intelligence. Your wife never thinks about how other people feel. She never thinks about how she makes other people feel. And she never really thinks about how she makes herself feel. I'd love to give her a book over emotional intelligence, but I don't think she would engage it, capture it, and read it. And he goes, no, she won't. So we had a lot of discussions that night at the bar about healthy boundaries. And I told him, I said, my standard of friends are way up here. Way up here. I don't have any drama. I don't have any toxic energy. I don't have any of that in my life. I refuse. It's not allowed. I've established healthy boundaries. If you're one of those people, I'm not going to have you in my life. Plain and simple. Now, if you want me to mentor and guide you, that's cool. I'll do that 100%. If you've lost your direction, 100%, I will mentor you, do whatever I can to help you be the best version of yourself. But when you bring in drama, toxic energy, your entitlement, narcissism, I have nothing to do with it. Those people aren't allowed in my life. And I said, if your wife wasn't my neighbor, I wouldn't even talk to her. Though I don't hang around people like that. Just how I am. I don't deal well with that kind of people, right? I love them, I respect them, I appreciate them, but I'm the gatekeeper of who I allow in and out. And I explained that to him. And I explained to him about healthy boundaries. And I talked to him about a mission statement and what their dreams, visions, and goals, and being intentful with your life. And I said, I feel like she's all over the place, right? She's all scatterbrained, and she does this stuff without thinking. She never really puts herself in the place of others. And so we had a great conversation that evening. Amazing conversation. Make sure that when you're approaching people, that you're establishing a healthy boundary with respect to the other person. And then they're willing and ready to receive the information. Communicate what you're doing. Hey, I want to have a talk to you today about relocating to Oklahoma. That's how I approach my wife. If it's something big, I'm going to tell her first thing in the morning. Honey, this evening when we go on our hike or walk, I want to talk to you about relocating to Oklahoma. That's a big one. I'm not just going to be on a walk and like, hey, let's move to Oklahoma, let's sell the house, right? I wanted to discuss all the options, opportunities, get her thoughts, feelings, and emotions regarding it. That's not a word vomit, right? So all these red flags that you've put up in your life and all these things that are going on, address one major issue at a time, establish that one healthy boundary, and then begin to move on towards the other ones. Give yourself the opportunity to establish those healthy boundaries, personally, professionally, internally, and have the best relationship you can with yourself. I hope this talk is insightful, and I hope you really enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please reach out to me or just leave a comment. I love you guys. Have an amazing weekend.